Haifa was being bombed and the north of Israel is constantly under fire. This war is really, the battlefield is on the home front, and it has not stopped at all for them, at all. It's happening on our heads here all over the country. The worst attack against the Jewish people, because we have never had a terror attack in Israel, but the Jewish people and the nation here is under an existential threat where they want to make a genocide, and it's very, very difficult to deal with.
Hello, friends of more, friends of the management of reality. This is an interview that I have long been waiting for. I am pleased and honored and delighted to have my old friend with me from Israel News Talk Radio. She is living in the Judea area. She's one of the brave Jews who are making sure Israel is the land of Israel, and she's here to talk about what is like in this war and what it's like to be a mother and in these difficult times. So please welcome her. And Tamar, thank you very much for coming to
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. Thank God we're doing fine. A little bit more sleep now due to the pause. I won't call it a ceasefire, but the pause in missiles in our area, because just before I came on your show, Haifa was being bombed and the north of Israel is constantly under fire, and it has not stopped at all for them, at all.
No, it has been very difficult. This is true. Yeah, it's been the toughest part of the country, I think. Doesn't let up. So yeah, for people, and they're always firing on civilians. People really understand this in the rest of the world. They think this is just, a war like any other war, but it's not. Israel and the United States in this war have been careful to avoid civilian casualties on the Iranian side, while Iranians exclusively target civilian areas. Is that not true?
Yeah, in fact, this war is really, the battlefield is on the home front. That's where the battlefield is, on the home front.
Meaning what?
Meaning the land, the people of Israel. It's not some battlefield far off that we have to send soldiers to there. It's happening on our heads here, all over the country. Right.
Now, tell us a little bit about, so I understand that, well, they're soldiers. What is the experience whose soldiers fight? You're waiting for them to come home. You don't know what's going to happen. You're praying for them to be safe. Tell us about that experience.
It's hard. It's hard because you know that they're being called up to defend the country, and you know that there's a possibility, God forbid, that they're not going to come home, and it's very, very difficult to deal with. But the Jewish people and the nation here is under an existential threat where they want to make a genocide against us. They want to destroy it, to destroy us. They say it, and being the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, I believe it. When someone says they want to kill you, believe them. And someone's got to fight the war. And that means it's my sons, my children as well. And I'm glad that I raised them to be defenders of Israel and to go out and protect our borders and to protect our homeland and to protect our families, because we can't rely on anybody else in the world to do it, nor should we, by the way.
And they've been making you proud, haven't they?
Very proud. In fact, if I can brag, I just got word about a week or two ago that my son one of my sons won the Chayal Mitzdayan, which is the best soldier of his entire division in on the battlefield, basically as a fighter. So I'm very, 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 very proud of him, and he'll be getting an award, I think, in another week or so. They'll be giving out the awards.
Is this the one I met who told me the story about how saved when fighting
That was
in
his
Gaza?
older brother. That was his older brother. There's two. You met two, I think. And yeah, this is the one that was down in Kfar Aza. He's a paratrooper, and he was on October 7th. He already went down there, and he saw the carnage. He saw the mutilation. He saw the dead bodies burnt up in their cars. He saw all the dead children on it. He saw it all, and I mean, again, they say, and it's true, that this was the worst attack against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. It was a massacre and of immense cruelty, and this is what we're dealing with. And we're just the canary in the coal mine. If we don't stop it here, and if the world doesn't support us to stop it here, it's going to spread. They say death to Israel, but they also say death to America. Israel's the little Satan. America's the big Satan.
Well, in fact, they want to destroy
the Sunday people. First the Saturday people, they say, and then the Sunday people.
That's
the Christian world, the West.
That's right. And what is the? I mean, I want to imagine that witnessing everything he witnessed that day, your son must have had a psychological cost. Is he okay?
They say they're okay. There's a thought in Judaism that when we have to go out to battle, that God takes away the stone in our hearts because it's such a terrible thing to have to go out and kill sometimes. But we're only doing it because we're going to be killed. In other words, it's eat them for lunch before they eat you for dinner. So we have to do it. I have a son-in-law who works for Israel's emergency medical MADA, Magen David Adom.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's just so that people understand, Tamar.
Yeah.
People should know Magen David Adom means Red Star of David, and Israel of what in Christian countries is called the Red Cross. So Magen David Adom, the Red Star of David, is in charge of emergency medical services and so forth, right?
Right. So he is called up also. He's right now called up, actually, also. He's not home. That's why my daughter has been living with me with her children because he's not at home.
Full of grandchildren.
This is correct.
How many? Tell us, how many grandchildren, Tamar?
Well, in my house, there are approximately 9. 9.
Approximately? You have to estimate the number of grandchildren?
They kind of go back and forth. But in any case, so my son-in-law, who works in the emergency medical team, he was down there also on October 7th. He was called up. And he said that he remembered. Can I be gruesome on the show? Can I tell the raw truth, or should I be censored a bit?
There is no censorship on this show.
Okay. So he was telling me how he was passing on the road, driving the ambulance. He was passing a bus stop with a dead little girl sitting there, and her dog next to her licking her face, trying to wake her up, but she was dead. And he was telling me when he came home that I thought I was getting news reports at, slowly the death toll is getting higher and higher. And I think at that time they were saying that there were over 100 or 150. I don't remember exactly. Dead.
This is October 7th, right?
This was October 7th, yeah. So maybe this was October 8th or October 7th in the evening. I don't remember when he got home maybe it was the next day. But in any case, he was telling me that it's way over that number. It's probably 1,000 or more. And I was in shock because we have never had a terror attack in Israel that was so high.
Right.
And I said, over 1,000? What are you talking about? And he said, Ima, which is mother, a body isn't counted as a dead body until it's been tagged. In other words, they have to be able to take that body and then they tag it and it gets a number. And many of the bodies they weren't able to get to because these monsters had booby-trapped the bodies. They had put grenades inside the bodies of these people. And so when the emergency crews would get there and they would grab these people to see if they're alive or give triage, whatever, it would blow up on them.
Oh my God.
Yes, terrible things. So they would booby trap bodies. So they had to have sapper teams out there to check everything first, etc. And the death toll kept rising and rising. And we know there was over, I think, 1,200 that were brutally murdered. And of course, the hostages, the kidnapped. So it's been a very, very big wake-up call to Israel, to the Israeli people, and especially, by the way, to the leftists. Those kibbutzim down on the Gaza border were very, very left-wing communities that were always trying to bring the Arabs in, work with them, taking them to hospitals. They would go to Gaza, to the border, and pick up Arabs that lived in Gaza, bring them to Israeli hospitals, and then bring them back. They were always doing good deeds and trying to make good neighborly relations with them. Later on, they found out that these Arabs that they helped, whether they worked on their farms, worked inside the community themselves, they were writing down all sorts of information. This family lives here. They have 3 kids and a dog. This is the name of their family. This is their address. And they gave all types of information to the Hamas. And that's why the Hamas knew which houses to attack first and which ones to wait, which ones were more vulnerable, which ones less vulnerable, etc., etc. So when these people, I remember seeing this woman being interviewed on the news here in Israel. Of course, it's all in Hebrew, and she was saying that, I don't remember what the Arab's name was, but let's just say it was Mustafa. She was saying, Mustafa was our friend. He was in our home. We went to his home. Our family came to our home, and he worked for us. And because they want to get jobs with us, we're much higher paying money than working in Gaza. And she says, "Thank you very much, Mustafa, for giving them all this information." And because they had found these documents on the Hamas, which were given to them by these people, and or the people themselves had it on them still. So they became more extreme. Many of these leftists became more extreme than the right wing, saying, I will never go back and live there until every Arab in Gaza is out. There's no more living side by side, no more trying to do good for them and make things better for them, because it's ingrained in them it's an ideological war. It's not just we want more water, our country needs more water, so let's go to war to get the waterways there. We're talking about an ideological, religious war against us, and there is no living side by side with monsters like these.
Well, and that raises the question of how are the families live where you live in Judea and Samaria, in the disputed territories? How are you coping with the, like, Pilofata, what we call the Palestinian Authority, which governs a big area? Different. It's not like they want something different from Hamas. In fact, we know the authority has a program called Pay for Slay, which takes a huge chunk of the payments to any Arabs that have managed to kill a Jew or that have died in prison. Those people are getting lifetime salaries, and when they die, it goes to their families. So a huge chunk of the economy of Arabs in Judea and Samaria is, in fact, completely oriented and dedicated. It's not the Palestinian Authority is any different from Hamas. So I want to ask you, how you have children, you have grandchildren, you make your lives there. How do you experience of the Arab murders in the territories where you live?
Well, you are 100% right. Absolutely right. And we looked at it here as a godsend that the Hamas preempted the rest of the plan, apparently, from Iran, that Hezbollah was going to attack at the same time, the Houthi, Iran, and the Hamas from all sides, and overwhelm us with missiles and rockets and invasions, etc. But because Hamas apparently jumped the gun when they had that music festival there, they gave us here in Judea and Samaria, Yehuda v'Shamron, advance notice now to be prepared that it could happen here. And people here now were getting prepared. We were prepared any moment that they might want to come and invade our communities, make an attack on us, etc. And we had that extra time to prepare, which unfortunately in the South, they did not.
So all this, the Jewish communities in Judea have been arming and preparing for a possible attack?
There is always, look, in every community, there's what's called a kitat konanut, which is like a ready team. If there's any we have security constantly going around the communities, checking for holes in fences, breakage where they might cut in through, etc. And so we're always patrolling and always prepared in that sense. But after this, we were prepared for something much more serious, not just maybe a terrorist or two or three, but of an entire villages emptying out, and Arab villages emptying out and trying to invade us and do the same thing that they did down south. So then, of course, and all the time, in any case, there's always people trying to get funds from other Jews across the world to help buy more equipment for us, because we are not, the individual communities are not as supplied as well as the Palestinian Authority is. I mean, they have RPGs. We don't have RPGs in our ready team. They have armored cars. We have a few, maybe a couple of, a few bulletproof trucks or something, but not like they have. And so, yeah, we have to be on our toes, and we are. And thank God now we're taking the defense and making the first move and not waiting for them to come to us. Now we've been sending in the IDF to go into Tulkarm and to Jenin and all of these other places, looking for, weaponry, rockets, etc. And they found a lot, but we're still under no illusion that this still can't happen, and we're as ready as we can be.
I'd like to ask you two questions about these things. One is, it is my understanding. Well, first of all, what is the population estimate? How many Arabs are believed to be living right now in Yehuda and Shomron, in Judea and Samaria?
Oh, gee, I'm not sure. Maybe a million, maybe a little bit more. I'm not sure.
And how many Jews?
I don't know. I think there's, I don't even want to say because I could be so off. Maybe like 100,000 families, but I don't know. Okay. We should ask the Chat GPT. It might have
All right,
more.
I'll ask Yoel to look it up, and okay, he'll tell us in a second.
Yes,
thank you. Thank you, Yoel. Okay, so and the other question I wanted to ask you is, I heard some reports that there had Jewish residents in Judea and Samaria had been hearing rumblings that suggested maybe that there was some tunneling going on, the kind of thing that happens in Gaza all the time, right? Arabs making tunnels so that they can go attack Jewish communities. Have you heard anything about that? Do you know anything about that?
Well, where are you talking, Judea and Samaria or up north?
No, Judea and Samaria. No, I know Hezbollah does this, but I
Yes.
was interested to hear about Judea and Samaria because I didn't know that tunnels were a problem there. But I heard that some residents of Jewish residents of Judea and Samaria had reported that they had felt tremblings and they had heard noises that they thought were consistent with tunneling activity. I'm just want to know if you know about anything about that.
I'll tell you, I've heard that as well. Not a lot, but here and there. So far, we haven't found anything that I'm aware of. But also the difference is where Gaza is, it's basically all sand. Here in Judea and Samaria, it's very hard to dig down because you've got sediment rock. You've got in my backyard, I have boulders that a tractor came and was taking out that are maybe 5-6 feet, in circumference. Huge boulder. It's not so easy to dig a tunnel in Judea and Samaria because it's mountainous here. It's rocky here. It's not the same terrain at all. Up north, I can tell you that they do. They have found tunnels, and I remember my son, the same one I told you about that won the award. When he was younger, when he was a full-time soldier, because now he's a reservist, but when he was a full-time soldier and he was stationed up north, he remembers being in the base and lying in his cot and seeing a picture on the wall, shaking because they were drilling. And the tunnels that they drilled in under the the Lebanese border, the Hezbollah, they were building some of their tunnels so big that you could drive trucks through them. They were like underground highways.
I saw those. Yeah. So just to update you, it is estimated that there are a little under 3.5 million Arabs in Judea and Samaria, and a little over 500,000 Jews in Judea and Samaria.
Okay, I don't think that the Arab numbers are correct. I think that that's incorrect because the Arabs are always picking up their numbers. And even today in Gaza, where they're claiming that there's 2 million Arabs there, I believe that at the moment there's only 800,000 there. That's what I heard from Moshe Feiglin, and he's pretty plugged in. So, but they always like to, inflate their numbers.
Yes, this is true. I have also heard from very well-informed people that in fact the number of Arabs in Judea and Samaria is much lower than has been reported. And in fact, I was told by this same source that a lot of people have been leaving. Like a lot of Arabs have been leaving because there's just no real prospect for a prosperous life in Judea and Samaria that doesn't involve becoming a Jew killer. And that makes kind of sense. I mean, if I were an Arab in Judea and Samaria, I probably wouldn't want to stay. So it does make sense that a lot of people might. I mean, especially given that the government over you is a terrorist organization, which not only kills Jews, but in fact kills a lot of Arabs and oppresses the Arabs that they don't kill. Yeah, one of the things that these Western quote unquote supporters of the Arabs in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza never seem to understand is that they have in fact been supporting the terrorist organizations that oppress those Arabs, that indoctrinate them into a death cult, turn them into monsters, and oppress them without let, and also murder them left and right. When you look at the history of the Arab leadership all over what is now the state of Israel, the statistics we have is that, for example, Hajj Amin al-Husseini, who's the founder of the Arab Palestinian movement, in the Arab Revolt, which was what they called the Arab Revolt, which was the biggest attack on the Jews in British Mandate Palestine, this went from 1936 to 1939. The statistics we have is that he managed to kill about 400 Jews and several thousand Arabs. So it was an Arab revolt supposedly against the Jews, and they were killing mostly Arabs, right? And this has been the tenor of Arab government in this land for as long as anyone can remember. And the first Intifada was like this too. They started throwing rocks at Jews, and after a while, the first Intifada had devolved into a civil war between Arabs, and everybody was very worried among the Arabs that they were going to get murdered by the
their own people.
Yeah, supporters of PLO Fatah and the other terrorist groups. So,
let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
But just before I do, I'll just mention Iran. Look what the Islamic regime did. They just killed 30,000 of their own people, and they'll probably kill more. And that's why I don't understand why Trump keeps talking about a new regime. They already have a new regime, and that their goals are just to make Iran promise that they're not going to seek nuclear weapons, that they'll give up the uranium that they have, and that they will leave the Strait of Hormuz open. That's all he wants. But it's ridiculous, because if you do that, you're sentencing thousands more of Iranians to death, because if they stand, they have to, the goal of this war needs to include the topple of this evil regime. Because as long as this evil regime is in power, they will continue to look for nuclear weapons, whether they have to make it or whether they can buy it from some other country. And they will have the same goals, and it's just kicking the can down the road, mowing the grass. It's going to be left for the next generation or the next few years even. That's number one. Number two, the story I wanted to share with you. My brother-in-law has a lot of dealings with Arabs, and he takes a lot of taxis also, and he's got Arab taxi drivers that he's friendly with, and a lot of times he'll use them. And one of the Arabs was telling him, this was years ago actually, even, he was telling him, I was approached by, I don't know if it was the PLO or the Hamas, because there is Hamas in Judea and Samaria as well. It's not just in Gaza. And they're telling me, which child are you going to give us for the cause, to be like a suicide bomber? And he didn't know what to say. He said to my brother-in-law, what do I tell them? Like, what do I do? Because he wasn't as fanatic as they were. He was more of a normal human being. This era.
Well, of course they exist. These people are very afraid. These people are constantly afraid that the fanatics are gonna destroy them. Of course. I wanted to make a point about the first thing you said. You know what my model is. I believe that Trump is trying to give them a way out. He dragged his feet as long as he could before this war started, and he performed the same absurdity you are mentioning now before the war. So the entire context was that the Ayatollahs were firing on their own people, tens of thousands of their own people, and in response to that, Trump, after threatening that if they did that, he would shoot at the Ayatollahs, right? Because he made that threat. He was very macho. And then when they did start shooting at their own people, in response, Trump made all kinds of excuses not to attack them, and then he created the negotiating process so that they could sign that they were going to abandon their nuclear program, and then he would have left them alone. That's the deal he was putting on the table, which is the exact same deal he's putting on the table now. And like you said, I think that the nuclear weapons are a little bit beside the point. Not that I want them to have nuclear weapons, but the point is, even if you could guarantee, which of course you can't, that was also your point, that they're not going to be pursuing nuclear weapons, even if you could guarantee that, we know they pursue conventional weapons. We know they arm proxy forces on the borders of Israel. We know they attack Israel with the proxy forces and with rockets from Iran. We know that the ideology of the regime is the genocidal destruction of the Jewish state. We know that they oppress their own people, they kill their own people, they are ruining Iran. I mean, we know all of these things, right? So the absurd process in which the Ayatollahs kill their own people and Trump reacts by giving them a diplomatic process where they can sign to some conditions and stay in power is perfectly absurd. And it seems to me that the explanation that resolves the absurdity is that in fact Trump is trying to save them, and that would be consistent with the other things Trump does, because he stopped the IDF in Lebanon when Israel was destroying Hezbollah. He stopped the IDF in Syria when they were advancing into the north and destroying al-Jolani's forces. Al-Jolani had inherited basically Assad's military hardware. They were destroying all of that. They could have joined in the north with the Rojava Kurds, who are democratic, who want to be Israel's allies, who defend all minorities in Syria, right? And instead, Trump stopped the IDF, basically installed al-Jolani as the next government of Syria, as the new government of Syria, and al-Jolani is ISIS, right? So Trump has been behaving as the godfather of the jihadists. And then, and this is really incredible, he gave al-Jolani a green light to destroy the Rojava Kurds. And they have been destroyed. The only democratic movement in the Muslim world was destroyed on Trump's say-so. He stopped the Israelis in the 12-day war. He came in, dropped a few bombs just so that he could take narrative control of the war and imposed a ceasefire on the Israelis. He grabbed Netanyahu by the ear and forced him to kneel in front of the emir of Qatar, the butcher of 1,200 Jews, tortured Jews in Gaza, and responsible for 250 hostages. That's the emir of Qatar, because he's been funding Hamas, right? And he stopped the IDF in Gaza. It's really remarkable. Trump has been behaving as the protector of the jihadists. So it really, I mean, the model that I think explains what's going on is that he was trying to save them with the negotiation before the war, but the Ayatollahs can't sign. They can't sign a document that gives great Satan and little Satan power in Iran to inspect the nukes and the industrial capacity that would produce the nukes and so forth. They can't do it, so they couldn't sign. And Trump was trapped by his own narrative. When they didn't sign, he had to attack. But now, when he was about to really produce the collapse of the regime, because he could have done it. I mean, if he had pushed a little bit harder and, for example, attacked the energy generation
Power stations,
power stations and so forth, if he had done that, he could have produced regime change. And he was right on the edge, and then he stops. Every time we are right on the edge of defeating the jihadists, Trump stops, or else he stops the Israelis. And once again, what does he do? This absurdity you're pointing out, he creates a diplomatic process that gives them the opportunity to sign and be saved and stay as the ruling elite that oppresses all those millions of Iranians. What do you think about this model?
Perhaps. I think that, look, America is an amazing country. I love America. I appreciate America, but I understand that in the power structure, they try to give a nice marketing for what they want to do, which may not be so nice. I can give an example of when they wanted to go in after the Twin Towers were taken down, and they went after Saddam Hussein, who had nothing to do with the Twin Towers. Okay. Nothing to do with it, and they labeled the campaign Iraqi freedom. Okay, that's why they were going to free the Iraq. And
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who has any intelligence understands that America is not going to go to war to free the Iraqi people, just like America's not going to war to save the Christians who are being slaughtered in the Sudan right now and
You know,
Somalia.
I know I don't want to impose my way of speaking, but I want to
Go ahead.
suggest
Yeah.
that it may be more useful for us analytically to say the U.S. bosses instead of America or the United States, because
Very good.
I want to be careful to exonerate the
The
U.S.
American
citizenry
people. Yes,
from
I agree.
from
Beautiful.
what the U.S.
US
bosses do.
bosses. I like that.
Right.
All right.
So, but I want to also point out something in what you're saying,
Okay.
which is telling. It's very interesting what you just said. You're right. The supposed reason for invading Iraq was 9/11, when Iraq had nothing to do with it. This is absolutely true. But there's another thing that we have to point out here. As you say, it had nothing to do with Iraqi freedom, because what was the consequence of that war? The consequence of that war is that they gave Iraq to Iran, to the same jihadi ayatollahs that Trump has now tried to protect, and whose whole axis he has been protecting all throughout 2025 and up to the beginning of this war. He had been protecting the entire Iranian axis. So it is quite telling that the U.S. bosses destroyed Iraq for a reason that had nothing to do with 9/11, and the consequence was that they gave Iraq to Iran. So not only didn't they liberate the Iranians, forgive me, the Iraqis, they made them subjects of the Iranian ayatollahs, and they gave a land corridor to the Iranian ayatollahs all the way to Israel, because to the northern border of Israel, because the ayatollahs already controlled Lebanon and Syria through the Assad family and through Hezbollah. So to me, it seems like the entire policy is a pro-jihadi policy.
Could be. I do not know. I suspect it's very, very possible. I do see something interesting happening here, whether they want it to or not. I think that they want it to, though. And that is that with this war, Israel and the United States have come out much more powerful. And Israel has basically become like the regional power here in the Middle East now. We've really raised our presence and our deterrent factor, although it's ideological, so they will fight to the death and they don't care.
Well, then there's no deterrence. You have to be careful with that. You shouldn't have the illusion, if it's really ideological and you believe they will fight to the death no matter what, then you're not deterring them.
Right. But there are some that will be deterred. We just had, I think it was, I don't remember the number, but we just had some Hezbollah soldiers who gave themselves up to the IDF up north in Lebanon. So not everybody that's in their forces is as ideological as maybe the top heads or something. So deterrence is always good. Flexing muscle, especially in the Middle East, where that's what they respect, is power and strength, and not politeness or the Western values, etc. Like even money. It's more honor and power here rather than money and prosperity and looking for the good life. They don't value that like the West does. So in any case, this has been very interesting. They are changing the world order in a sense, because whatever this old new world order wanted to do, it looks like they're possibly, because again, I don't know, but I know, who's that? Candace. Okay, never mind. I'm just joking. In any
Is that
case,
how she talks?
there was something going around. I don't want to go into that. In any case, things are changing here, and we'll see what happens.
You know that I never let an optimistic scenario
go unchallenged.
Go unchallenged. You know me. So let me tell you my terrifying picture of the future.
Okay.
And of course, my terrifying picture of the future is always based on the terrifying historical facts of the past. this is not the first time that the U.S. bosses attacked jihadis. The U.S. bosses attacked the ISIS jihadis, and they also went to war against the Afghan jihadis. Both of those jihadis were creations of the U.S. bosses. So the Afghan jihadis were created to attack the communist government in Afghanistan. The CIA created madrasas, which is to say Islamic schools where lots of Afghans were and people and Muslims from other parts of the world were indoctrinated into jihadism, armed and trained, and then sent into Afghanistan to fight the communist government of Afghanistan. It was all done by the CIA with the help of the Pakistani ISI, which is a creation of the CIA. And then in the case of ISIS, ISIS emerged from the military prison system that the U.S. bosses created in Iraq. And they had a very deliberate policy of allowing the jihadists to control the social life of those prisons and to turn the prisons into a factory for turning non-jihadists into jihadists. And everybody agrees, this was all over the mainstream press when it happened, everybody agrees that that's where ISIS came out of. All of the main commanders of ISIS had been inmates of the military prison system in Iraq. So we have two cases in which the U.S. went to war with jihadis, and in both cases, those were jihadis that they had created. And guess what? In both cases, the outcome of the war against the jihadis was to make jihadism stronger. So in the case of the war against the Afghan jihadis, that war became like a jihadi production industry, because Muslims from all over the world were going there to get trained and become jihadis, and then they would hire themselves out as jihadi mercenaries in other conflicts. And the end of that war was that the jihadis won. The Taliban ended up in control of Afghanistan, and they inherited an enormous amount of military hardware that the U.S. bosses left there in their supposedly incompetent evacuation. You know, that's the cover story. And in the case of ISIS, as we just got saying, the fight against ISIS, which was defeated, it's different from the Afghan case, because in the case of ISIS, ISIS did lose. But the consequence was that it opened that land corridor for the Iranian Ayatollahs, because it formalized their control over Iraq and gave them that land corridor all the way to the northern border of Israel. So I'm terrified of the U.S. bosses fighting the jihadis they create, because the outcome in the past has always been to make jihadism stronger and the security of Israel weaker. And in this case, guess what? They are also fighting jihadis that they themselves created, because Jimmy Carter is the guy that got rid of the Shah and installed Ayatollah Khomeini in power in Tehran. And Ronald Reagan is the guy with George Bush, Daddy Bush, who in the Iran-Contra affair made sure that they sent billions of dollars in weapons to the Iranian jihadis in Tehran. So, you know, it seems to me that if we learn to reason from experience, which I think is the rational thing to do, we have three cases in which the U.S. bosses have created jihadis, and three cases in which the U.S. bosses have gone to war with the jihadis they created. In the two cases that have already concluded, the outcome was terrible for Israel and for the world. Jihadism became stronger, the security of Israel was weakened. What do you think is going to happen in the third case? If we're reasoning from experience, we should predict the same thing.
There was an interesting remark that Prime Minister Netanyahu said, and he was saying that the plans are for, after this war, that the United States or some entity was going to be building a pipeline from, whether it was India, I don't remember, all the way through the Middle East to the port on Israel's Mediterranean coast. And there's a thought, I don't know, but there's a thought that perhaps they're doing this war because maybe Iran isn't agreeable to it. Maybe that's why they're going to war against Iran, or at least the United States. Israel would be for our existence, because they're trying to kill us. But
But Tamar, if the U.S. bosses wanted this war, Trump
Hmm.
wouldn't have dragged his feet. It was impossible for the Iranian
Well,
Ayatollah.
he might have dragged his feet because Trump has an agenda where he wants to leave a legacy of being, winning the peace prize, and that I don't go to wars. And he's trying to use his business skills to manipulate the Iran to cooperate. But it's two separate value systems. Iran can't be bought.
Well, but none of
They're
these
not interested in being
hypotheses,
bought.
none of these hypotheses are taking all of the evidence into account, and you need to. So you need to explain why he stopped the IDF in Lebanon. Why did he install al-Jolani in Syria? Let's just take that one. Why did he install al-Jolani in Syria? He could
Why
have
is he
simply
closing up with Qatar?
exactly.
Well,
So
money. Qatar's like the richest nation in the world, I think, isn't it?
okay, so but
Okay,
here's
and
the
that
problem.
impresses Trump.
Okay, here's the problem. You can
Yeah.
say money for Qatar. Can you say that for Syria?
No, you can't say that for Syria. No.
Well, then,
But maybe he just
you-
doesn't want to get involved, so he's making excuses, and he's thinking, if I put a suit and tie on this ISIS guy, and I can groom him to be cooperative with the West, then I won't have to tangle with him either. Maybe.
Well,
Again, I don't know. I don't know.
No. But we have to do this. We can't just say I don't know, and
How can you know if you don't know what's
no.
really going on
Of course,
behind the
you
scenes?
can say that you don't know, but you can't leave it there. So we can't just say we don't know, and every hypothesis is equally likely. It's
No, I'm not saying
important to recognize that his different behaviors, although you can imagine alternative explanations for each one individually, if you say he is protecting the jihadis, it explains every single behavior. So in Lebanon, he stopped the IDF to save Hezbollah. The effect of stopping the IDF is to save Hezbollah.
What if someone argues the point, but he's letting us attack the Hezbollah, even though he's got a ceasefire with Iran? He could easily right now say no more, but he hasn't yet.
He's not letting you attack Hezbollah. He stopped you in 2025.
Oh, yes.
He stopped the IDF from destroying Hezbollah. The
That's
IDF
the
was
MO
well on
of
its way.
the, how did you say it? The top bosses of, how did you?
The U.S.
describe it?
bosses.
The U.S. bosses, yeah. That's their MO. To always keep Israel weak, not dead, but weak, so you can control it.
Well, but that's my point. I'm saying they are protecting the jihadists. That's what they're doing. These are jihadists that they created.
There.
Let me tell you something, Tamar. Let me tell you something. I just published an article called The Geopolitical Theorem. I invite you to read it. The structure is as follows. I claim in that article that I can demonstrate that it's a theorem that the U.S. bosses have a pro-jihadi policy. That's the explanation. Why? Because in the event that I use to build this theorem is the Ayatollah Khomeini's attack in Beirut, Lebanon in 1983 that killed 258 U.S. citizens in Beirut. It's one of the biggest terrorist attacks in history. And it was on that day, it was the biggest terrorist attack that the U.S. had ever suffered. It was also the biggest loss of Marines, of U.S. Marines in a single day since the Iwo Jima Battle of World War II. It was a tremendous thing. And the building was completely destroyed. It was the most amazing thing. And it was in 1983, which means that attack happened smack in the middle of the secret arms transfers from the U.S. to Iran that we call the Iran-Contra affair. Okay? What did Reagan do? What did Ronald Reagan do when Ayatollah Khomeini killed 241 boys? Because those U.S. soldiers were boys. You know, they were 18, 19, 20 years old. Those were boys. So he killed 241 Marines and he killed 17 U.S. diplomats, 258 citizens in all. And Ronald Reagan did not retaliate against Iran. And they knew it was Iran. In 1986, the Miami Herald revealed that the NSA, the National Security Agency, had intercepts before the attack, about the attack. And also they could see in those intercepts that the upcoming attack was being masterminded by the Iranians. They had all of that information before the attack, and they didn't warn U.S. citizens in Beirut, and they didn't retaliate. Okay.
I'm curious because I don't know. What was the motive of Iran to bite the hand that feeds them? To what you're saying.
Oh, but you see, you are asking this question because you are MS bosses care about U.S. citizens. So you think, oh, if the Iranian Ayatollahs attack U.S. citizens, they are in danger. They are endangering themselves, because that's what the expression "you bite the hand that feeds you."
No, I'm just asking, what was the motivation of Iran to attack these soldiers in Lebanon?
Here it goes. So when that attack happened, Iran was getting billions of dollars a year in secret U.S. weapons from the U.S. bosses. Okay, that was already going on when Iran masterminded this attack. Okay, which means that the U.S. bosses were supporting jihadism, just like I claim that they're always doing. Okay, they were supporting jihadism. The official explanation for why they did this, for why they did the Iran-Contra arms transfers, was that they were supposedly paying ransom for Hezbollah hostages that were being held in Beirut. The only problem with that explanation is that the arms transfers began in 1981, and the first hostage was taken in 1982. So obviously, the decision to start sending secret weapons to Iran couldn't possibly have anything to do with hostages that didn't exist yet. Okay, so what's the alternative explanation? Well, they were creating jihadi forces and strengthening them. Jimmy Carter had gotten rid of the Shah and he had installed Khomeini in power, and now Reagan was making Khomeini powerful. Okay, so if the policy was to create and strengthen jihadi forces in the Middle East, another way of strengthening them is getting out of Lebanon and giving it to Hezbollah. And that's what the attack did. So the attack was used by Ronald Reagan to say, well, you know what, this is too dangerous. We just have to get out of Lebanon. 4 months after the attack, he cut and run, and all U.S. forces evacuated Lebanon. And the secret weapons to Khomeini continued after the attack. So I claim that this sequence of events allows us to produce a geopolitical theorem, the mainstream hypothesis that says that the U.S. bosses are the best allies of Israel and enemies of jihadism, and that they make the security of Israel a top priority. That hypothesis has been utterly refuted. Because if you say that the U.S. bosses can be the best allies of Israel, and that they are enemies of jihadism, and that they makes the security of Israel a top priority, and at the same time do this.
Yeah, no, they do. Of course not. Again, I said that their policy, I believe, is to keep Israel weak so they can control us. They open the spigot, close the spigot whenever they want to. They have their own agenda.
But that's not going to be the consequence of well, I don't know what you mean by control. Why would they want to control you? But the consequence of strengthening jihadis who don't mean to negotiate because they're fanatics, they're ideological fanatics, the consequence of that is going to be the extermination of the Israeli Jews. It's not going to be the U.S. controlling Israel. We saw the consequence on October 7th. That wasn't control of Israel. That was destruction of Jewish lives. That's what it was.
I don't know. You're saying that the top bosses were behind October 7th? I didn't understand.
Well, they have to be, right? The U.S. bosses are the creators of Iranian jihadism. Hamas is being supported by Iranian jihadism. Therefore, the U.S. bosses are morally responsible and causally involved in the October 7th attack. Naturally.
So I want to make sure I understand you. So you are saying that the top bosses of the United States knew and or even planned this October 7th massacre with Iran?
No, no, no. I'm not saying
I
that.
just want I want to
No, no,
understand you.
I
Okay.
didn't say that at all.
Okay.
I said, so let's take both things one at a time. So if the U.S. bosses remove the Shah, which they did, Carter did
Yes.
that, and they install Khomeini in power, which they
Yes.
did. Since
Yes.
2016, we have declassified CIA documents that establish that the U.S. bosses were in communication with Ayatollah Khomeini to replace the Shah since 1963. And we also know that Jimmy Carter did all kinds of things to make sure that the Artesh, the Iranian military, didn't take power and allowed Khomeini to take power. All of that we know now. Okay, so they put Khomeini in power, and then Ronald Reagan arms him to the teeth. All right? Well, that makes them responsible for the Iranian attack on 258 US citizens in Lebanon. They don't have to mastermind the attack specifically. If they create the Iranian jihadis and they arm the Iranian jihadis, they are co-responsible for what those Iranian jihadis do. And the same argument applies for October 7th. The exact same argument applies for October 7th.
Okay, but being responsible for in a way because they're supporting them doesn't mean that they knew about it and planned it with them, right? That's what
Fine.
is.
Again,
Right?
I'm not making the claim that the
Okay.
October 7th attack was specifically masterminded jointly by the U.S. bosses and the Iranian jihadis. I didn't say that. I'm not saying it's impossible either.
That. Okay.
I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm saying I'm not claiming it. What I'm saying is that one doesn't have to make that claim to make the U.S. bosses responsible for what happened on October 7th or what happened in 1983 in Beirut, Lebanon.
I hear you. Okay.
So, and it's consistent, and all of that is consistent with Trump's behaviors. Trump's behaviors protecting the jihadis in Lebanon, installing the jihadis in Syria, protecting the jihadis in Qatar, protecting the jihadis in Gaza, protecting the jihadis in Iran. Mm-hmm. It's all consistent. So it seems to me that if we've had two wars of the U.S. bosses against the jihadis they themselves created, and now we are in the third war against jihadis they created, and the outcome of the two previous wars was the jihadism got worse, and and so did the security of Israel. Then reasoning from experience, it seems to me that we should reason from experience. It seems to me that
I don't think that our defenses become worse. I think that we're very, very powerful and ahead of the game now. That's what I think.
Okay, well, let me give you a scenario. Let me give you a possible scenario.
Okay. Yeah.
See from pessimistic scenarios as outcomes.
I could probably add to those. There's many scenarios, but go ahead.
Okay, I think are relatively plausible. One is that Trump succeeds with his negotiation. One possibility. If he does, then the Ayatollahs or the IRG. Exactly. The can and they will attack you at some point in the future. They will rebuild their network because the U.S. boss will keep their on top of the Israeli leaders, and they won't let them fight. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is they really do collapse, and if they collapse, there's going to be.
I think it might balkanize.
Right, there's going to be a civil war, a giant migration. So you're going to have thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people running to Turkey, and excuse for Turkey to say, "Well, I have to take care of this. I have to take care of this because it's a security problem for my country." So they're going to give Iran to Turkey, and if they give Iran to Turkey, they give Iraq to Turkey because Iraq is already the westernmost province of Iran. And even the Iranian, because they already have Syria, because al-Jolani is a client of Turkey. Okay, they replaced the Iranian axis with the Turkish axis. I think that's quite plausible because we already saw Trump Turkish axis in Syria. So he obviously likes that solution to the collapse of jihad in Syria. the collapse of the Iranian axis in Syria, right? He likes the replace the Turkish axis. And Erdogan, I don't know how to pronounce that. Erdogan. Erdogan. He just said it a couple days ago.
That he could invade us. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Chutzpah. Chutzpah. Yeah.
I actually don't think you should call it chutzpah. I think you should consider it a real threat.
Oh, I am sure that we do, and I have considered it as well. But there's a factor here that with all of the intelligence and the facts and the trying to make connections and understand what's going on, we left one huge factor out, and you may disagree with me here, but that factor is God above, who is not going to let Israel fall. We may take some big hits. But we are not going to fall. And my sons and the people of Israel will not let that happen. There was some book, I think was called The Samson Option. Was it
Hashem did 1,200 Jews that lived.
Oh, wow. You know what they're saying here in Israel? They're saying that because of what happened there, God saved us by letting them jump the gun, because it could have been that we lost the country.
Right. When anybody brings up the Shoah, you know what they say? Oh, the Shoah.
The Shoah, meaning the Holocaust. No, I'm not. No, I don't say it was good.
I don't think that.
And I don't say that October 7th was good. October 7th was a hit against us. It was a slap. It was a wake-up call. Sometimes people who are asleep. Yes, my father is a Holocaust survivor. God bless his soul. He should live to be 120. He's still alive.
But you've heard this argument, Tamar. You've heard this argument. Because we created the state of Israel. That's
I never said something good came out of the Shoah. We have the state of Israel because God wanted us to have the state of Israel, and the Shoah was perhaps a tool that was used in order to get us to the point where we need to be.
There you go. That's exactly what I think makes no sense. First of all, that's not political theory, number one. Kind. You are now putting the responsibility.
Have you read the book of Shoftim, the book of Judges in the Bible? Have you read the book of Judges that's in the Bible? Because in the book of Judges, we see over and over again, it's a wash, rinse, repeat. The Jewish people are in the land of Israel after Joshua takes us in. He dies. We are left. We don't have a king in Israel.
I can't go down this road with you. Sorry, Tamar, because I don't.
Okay, no. But so give me just a minute here. It's fine. I'm not going to debate you. I just want to just share something. Okay. So we see in the book of Shoftim and Judges that all of the time, so we're left without a king, and we are in our territories, and then we get influenced and we start to assimilate with the Canaanites or with the Moabites or the Midianites, whoever it is. And because we assimilate, God wakes us up to let us know that you are never going to be able to be like everybody else. You have a mission in this world, and that is to be a light unto the nations and to be the Jewish people, to keep the mitzvot, to show the world the best way to live, because I'm the creator and I gave you a blueprint, which is the Torah, and that you should live by it and not to try to become like everybody else. And therefore, whenever we got too assimilated, God would send an enemy to come in and kill us, oppress us, whatever it was, until we finally realized, whoa, I guess we thought we could be friends with the Gazans, the Arabs in Gaza. I thought we could be friends with this entity or that entity, but we can't. They will never let us. And then we return to God. We repent. We say, God, save us. He sends in a judge, which is like a leader. We fight the battles and we win the battles, and we have peace again for a generation, 20 years, whatever it is. And then the same thing happens again. So we know that God uses all of these things as a tool to put us back on the mission in this world that we're supposed to be on.
I don't believe that's true. I could believe in a God like that. When I never agree.
When you have a
Hold on.
child, you will spank
Hold
your
on. Hold
child
on just a
or
second.
discipline your child to put him on the right path. It doesn't mean you don't love him.
You
God doesn't
murdered
want to have to do this, but it's a consequence. He tells us how to live.
Okay.
Live by this, it'll be good. You don't do it, there's going to be consequences. It's our choice.
I just want to say one thing. You and I will never agree about this, but I just want to say one
Okay.
thing. I think
And that's okay.
it's okay. I think that you should take if you're going to defend that hypothesis about God, instead of just saying that everything is consistent with this theory.
The historical
Let me
facts are that we wouldn't be here
Please
if
finish.
it wasn't for God. It doesn't make sense. Every
Finish.
fact in the world makes sense that we would not be here today, and yet we are.
May I finish my idea?
Please.
I think you take seriously. Jews that are in World War II, in the Shoah, were mostly unassimilated Jews. Most of them were unassimilated Jews. 90% of the Jews that perished in the Shoah were Jews. 90% of the Jews were Eastern Jews, where religious observance was far stronger than it was in the and the least assimilated Jews murdered. So need to take evidence. What you said, it doesn't just convince you. At least deal with it when you're defending.
But you're assuming that God is only going to take it out on those that assimilated, but that's not how it works. We are one nation, and when the nation errs, the whole nation suffers. Yeah.
Never said that.
Okay.
God, unassimilated Jews. I didn't say that. What I said is that if Nazis, then your hypothesis is in trouble. That's all I said. I don't think God is in
Okay.
But this idea.
You don't think God's doing anything?
No, I don't think he's. If he was protecting
talk to all the people who talked about all the miracles that happened to them, and the fact that, again, we are still here under every odds. We should not be here, and yet we're still here. And not only are we here, but we are thriving here. We, even during the war, I keep telling my husband, yes, we are thriving here. Look at Israel compared to all of the Arab states around it, and look how the Arabs want to become Israeli citizens because they have more freedom here. They have a better lifestyle, a richer lifestyle. We have progress. You look at Israel from a satellite and you see green where Israel is, because we've turned the desert into green. And you look at all these Arab states, sand, 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 sand. You look at their education. You look at what they've contributed to the world, which is almost, it's very little compared to Israel, which is coming out as a rising star. Why?
Let's leave it. I'm disputing this.
Okay, we won't talk.
I'm not saying that the but I think what makes it the reason Israel or one reason is that Jews have a. And I think everything you've said in this last section of our show is consistent with racism. I think that if the U.S. bosses have 3 times created forces, if they have twice in the past attacked those forces and made jihadism bigger and the security forces that they created, I think rational people who learn from experience, the same happen, and they should be preparing for that, instead of trusting that it's all part of Hashem's plan, and that's Looney Tunes. I think
in the end, we are going to come out winning, and we may take a lot of hits. But I'll say here that if you're only looking at facts and taking God out of the picture, then we shouldn't be here at all. And I'll tell you an interesting story. Also, you may have heard it before.
Listen, no. Yeah. My mouth. I'm not taking God out of the picture. What I'm saying is that He doesn't make decisions for us. He isn't. He was the Torah. But the time you get some coffee, we are making our own decisions. And if we learn
We
from
have free will.
wow, exactly, we will. And if we don't learn from experience, decisions we make with our free will are going to get us killed. So we have to learn from experience and stop blaming them for
Chas v'chalila, God forbid I'm blaming Hashem for anything.
you.
We have free will when we
said
listen
he
to him.
used the
You know what?
Holocaust.
You know what? Every missile that came over our heads, and we have to run to safety, right? We just had this. And you know, I remember I was in the kitchen and I was thinking, you know, I hate them. How can they do this to us? Yamach Shemam, and et cetera, et cetera. And then it hit me. Now, you may not relate to this because you're not on the spiritual path that I'm on. Okay, I think I don't want to presume, but it occurred to me that we would not be getting these missiles if God didn't want us to get these missiles. He's letting Iran do this because we as a nation are still not where we need to be. And this is a wake-up call to us. And that's, you know, as soon as we repent and do the right, what? I'm not blaming him. He is telling us, go on my path. I don't want to do this, but if you don't go on the path, things are going to happen, and he lets them happen. That's it. Iran is just a stick, but you have to look who's holding the stick, who's wielding the stick.
Look forward for explanation of how. Let's not right now because I really have to go. I have another show, but I will.
We'll let the listeners leave comments. And they can say they disagree with me, or they disagree with you, or whoever they disagree with, or agree with, and be interesting.
Solve the problem that in Shoah it was mostly unassimilated Jews.
Again, we are one nation. It doesn't matter. He's not going to say, because then it's too obvious, and then you lose free will. You lose free will.
Some Jews assimilated.
We are one nation, and unfortunately, everybody gets hurt. The whole nation suffers.
Sorry, I will stand by my statement. I think you are blaming Hashem for the Shoah. And
when Germany was hit, when England was hit with the Blitz, were all those people guilty? No, but the good die with the bad. That's war.
Right.
That's what happens in life. What?
That happens in war. But you're saying this is Hashem doing it. I'm not. War. That's my question. So, but let's talk about this next time. Because
we'll leave it. Yes.
Show, loving with you. I hope we get to do this many more times.
Same.
Bye-bye, everybody. Remember
to God bless you. God bless you.
Remember to subscribe to you. I know you're going to like us because you love Tamar. So remember to like us.
Tell people where they can find me. IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Israel Radio. Tell them.
.com. Yeah. And we have programming, and you can listen on demand or through our listening stream. It's a great station. Also uncensored. So it's great. Good to listen to. Thanks.